welcome to vlog number 19. We are having a great time in the allotment today. So we've come down, me and my youngest daughter, who's out there playing on the swing, and we are going to get quite a few things done because the weather's quite nice. It's not the glorious sunshine that they promised, but that's probably a good thing because you get more done when you're not too hot. So the trellis that my friend gave me, we're going to be putting up today. I've brought a few bits of wood from home and I'm going to kind of make a support with those so that they don't blow away in the wind, hopefully. And I'm going to attach those to a couple of my pallet collar beds. So hopefully that'll make a really nice strong structure and we can grow loads of beans and things up there this summer all around our seating area, which hopefully will look really pretty. And it'll give us maybe a little bit of shade in the evenings as well, because that's kind of the way the sun comes round. So that'll be nice. It does get really hot down here on the allotment. At home we're north facing, so we don't really get any evening sun, but it's completely opposite here. So we don't get morning sun. In the summer the sun comes onto the allotment at about 11ish in the morning, and then it stays right till the sun goes down. So it can get really, really warm in the evenings. So it'll be really nice to come down and be able to sit in the shade next to all my beautiful beans and flowers. So yeah, so that's the main job for today. I'm also thinking I'm going to try and plant some more potatoes. I planted a few last week. I'm thinking, I've been struggling to think where to put the potatoes because I don't have a huge growing area. A lot of my allotment at the back is under deep shade because of the trees, because it's right by the river. So that's not an area that we can grow anything on. I just use it for storage and the children play there, which is fine. But that means that you're always a little bit kind of stuck for space and wondering what to put where. But the bed that's next to my compost heap that I'm gonna grow my beans up, the back 2/3 of that bed is going to be a little bit shady, but really good rich manure type soil, enriched with manure. And I'm figuring that the potatoes might be all right there. They might grow quite happily there because I don't think they would mind being partial shade. And by the time the beans get particularly big, I think we'll be harvesting the potatoes anyway. So that's my plan. I'm going to put some there and then it's not wasted space, but I can actually get some potatoes in the ground. So yeah, that's the plan. And then we've also got some potting on to do. There's quite a few seedlings that could do with going into their own individual little pots now, so we're going to do that. And we've got some seeds to sow. I'm going to sow some sweet corn, I think. I don't entirely know where I'm going to grow it yet, but every year that we've grown sweet corn, it's been rubbish. So last year I didn't grow any, and I kind of missed the excitement of thinking we were going to get sweet corn. So I might sow it and just see how it is. If it's looking particularly healthy, we'll sow some. I've got some that's an early bird. That's the other problem we have here because I have a really short season. So maybe that'll be the answer. So yeah, we're going to sow some sweet corn, and I've got a few other bits and pieces that I want to sow. And then we're going to sow the parsnips, I think, outside, if I can find my seeds. I've covered part of the bed with some kind of cloche covers to warm the soil, and it's done the job. It's much warmer under there now. So I'm going to hopefully get those sown today. I normally sow my parsnips with some radish as well, because parsnips are really slow growing and the radish show up first, so you can remember what you've planted, and you get a double harvest from the same place. So if I can find my radish seeds and I can find my parsnip seeds, then I'll do that. If not, I think I've got some turnips, so they grow really fast too. Maybe I could pop them in and then just harvest them as baby turnips. I see. So there we are. Anyway, better go and get on with some jobs because I've spent most of the time so far in the allotment chatting with other allotmenteers because it's nice and busy today. So yes, go and get on with the jobs and probably have a cup of tea. See you later. Earlier this week we had some really horrible weather.
lots and lots of rain, and it also got really windy. We had gale force winds, hail, thunderstorms. So me and the eldest came down to the allotment early in the week to weigh things down and tie things up. Yeah, it was miserable, but as you can see, it's massively cheered up now. Other good news is that chicken flock down, as it is coming to an end. So as of tomorrow, which is April the 18th, the chickens are going to be allowed out. So that's very exciting. Sorry, not tomorrow, Tuesday. Anyway, this week the chickens are going to be allowed out. So even though I still give them lots of enrichment, like the weeds and things like that hung up, it's going to be lovely for them to have a bit of a change of scene. Now that we've got these, you want to leave the leaves so that they feed. These are done and they're making seeds there, do you see? But we want to take those off so that they don't make seeds.
Oh, do you not want them?
Because if they make seeds, it takes energy out of the bulbs.
Right.
So we'll take them away, but we'll leave all the leaves, and then the leaves will die back and give energy back to the bulbs so they flower again next year.
Cool.
I was really delighted last week when some lovely friends of ours offered us some free fence panels that they didn't need anymore, and they also had these brilliant trellises. So I snapped them up, brought them home, and then to the allotment, and we're going to use them to kind of shield off this area a bit and grow beans, possibly some other things as well, but definitely beans. It's a really sunny corner. The sun comes around, so the beans should get sun pretty much all day from kind of 11ish onwards. But it'll also mean that we get a bit of shade, so it'll be absolutely lovely as a seating area. So we're fixing them to these pallet collar beds and putting a piece of timber either side and kind of sandwiching them together and just drilling them with some screws. I pre-drilled the holes into the wood first, and I'm securing it at the bottom into the actual pallet collar itself and kind of between the trellis little, I don't know what you call those, but in the gaps between the trellis, I'm securing it with screws into the two pieces of wood. So that seems to be doing really well, and it seems quite secure. So hopefully it'll be enough to support the weight of the beans, but also it won't blow over when it gets windy. I think these would look really lovely painted as well, but I'm not sure if our budget's going to stretch to paint this year. If I have some lying around, I might use it, but if not, I might just grow the beans up them as they are this year and then maybe paint them either very late in the autumn or maybe early next spring, because I think it would look really nice all kind of tied together in one colour, but we shall see what happens. We had to do a little bit of adjustment with this second one because the pallet collar bed is on a bit of an angle, so the two trellises were overlapping a bit. So we just raised one of the pallet collars up, the top one, with a little bit of wood, which was Imogen's very good idea, and that was enough to make the pallet collars stand kind of better together. And then we just did the same again with the wood and sandwiched them both together with screw. The next jobs were to sort out this table where we're keeping all of our seedlings that are fine to be outside, and also to turn the compost heap. So I'd already started this a little bit earlier. I'm trying to keep the compost in two halves, one half that's finished and is rotting down, and then fill the other side, which that's the plan anyway. So yeah, I did lots of turning, managed to get that finished, and Imogen did a lovely job of tidying up the table and getting rid of any seedlings that were looking a bit dead and sorting out the seedlings that would be fine to stay outside. Beautiful, exciting find underneath a piece of cardboard in the compost heap was this bluet, which I believe is edible. I decided to just relocate these just under a little pallet, but hopefully they'll continue to grow. And Imogen's fruit bushes that she potted on are looking really good. So for the past couple of years, I've used this little solar pump from, I think it's from Irrigation, and it is brilliant. It just kind of sits on the side of my shelter, but as you can see, the screw bit is broken. So I'm just trying to use a bit of rope to attach that back up. This works by pulling the water out of the water butt and sending it through some tubes into the polytunnel, and then it just drips every few hours according to how you set it. And it's a real lifesaver in the summer, because although it doesn't really substitute for a proper watering, it's enough to keep things alive. So this is how it works. That little kind of receptor there has a weight in it, and that falls down in the water when you've got the wires right. And when that floats to the top, it means there's no water, and so it will beep to let you know that the water butt has run dry. So I'm just adjusting this so that that sinks down, as you can see. And then hopefully this will charge up and it'll start working again. So these are the little drip feeders, and you just arrange those as you want them around your growing space. I think it came with at least a dozen of these and plenty of wire. And yeah, it just does its thing, which is really great. It really is a big help in the summer months. So I'm just going to wait for it to charge, and then hopefully on my next visit it will be working. I've got my fingers crossed. If not, I might have to buy another one, or we might just have to resort to just hand watering and make sure that we come down often enough. Now that the weather is starting to warm up and we're getting some more sunny days, we're getting to the point where we want to sow things outside. So today we're going to be sowing our parsnips, and we're just making a string line so that we get a nice neat row. So Imogen's drilling some baling twine into a couple of pieces of wood, and then we're just wrapping the wood around to store it that way, so that we can stick these pieces of wood into the ground either side of the row that we want to sow, and the rope will give us a nice straight line. For the past week, I've had these covers, a shower screen and a couple of old cloche covers, warming up the soil in this area of this bed, ready for the parsnips to be sown. The parsnips will germinate better if the soil is a little bit warmer, so that's the purpose of this. But now that the soil's warmed up a bit and the weather's warmed up a bit, I probably won't bother putting them back on this section, and I'll use them to warm another area of soil where I'm going to sow some other seeds. So we're just removing the covers and weeding anything that's come up, which is mainly sycamore seedlings, surprise, surprise. And then we're going to use that string line that we've just made to mark out where we want to sow the parsnips. So when I'm sowing my parsnips, I like to just make a shallow drill in the ground and then sow the parsnips really thickly. Parsnips aren't known for being amazing at germinating, so you're always better to sow way more than you need. Also, if the birds see any, they really like them too. And basically, if you get loads and loads coming up, that's not a problem because you can just thin them out to the distance that you want them to grow. As well as that, parsnip seed does not keep particularly well. A bit like carrot seeds, you're better to sow them in their first year. So there's no gain to keeping the seeds. You may as well sow them all. So we're just sowing this one really long row of parsnips and we're putting loads of parsnip seed in. We'll also then, over the top of the parsnips, we will sow a row of radish. The purpose of that is that the radish seeds germinate much more quickly than the parsnip seeds. So A, I'll remember where my parsnips are, and B, you get 2 crops for the one space. Once the seeds are all sown, we've just covered them over and we're adding some extra compost above them. Again, this just marks where we've sown things. I want to sow different rows of different vegetables in this bed, so this will just make sure I remember exactly where the parsnips are, because it'll be a different colour soil for the time being until the radish come up, and I won't sow something else in that area by accident.
rainbow, I think. Smile. It's coming to you.
I always love to see the comfrey. It's a sure sign that spring is definitely here. It's such, I don't know, just such a lovely leaf. I love the textures of it. And when the flowers come and the bees are all over it, it's just beautiful. I grow a type of comfrey, it's Bocking 14, which is a sterile version, so it doesn't spread everywhere. This was on the plot when we arrived, nearly 10 years ago now, and it hasn't spread at all. It's just got a little bit bigger in its clump, which I don't mind. And it makes an amazing fertiliser. You can just drop the leaves around and they will just decompose really quickly and feed the soil. And you can also make it into a great plant food by just immersing it in water.
Hi, so I'm going to plant some more potatoes. I'm going to plant them here, which is just near the compost area, behind where we're going to grow our beans. As I said before, my plan is that this otherwise would kind of be wasted space because it's a bit shady once the beans grow up, but the potatoes won't mind being a little bit shady, and by the time the beans really shade out the area, we'll probably be harvesting the potatoes anyway. So I've got some salad potatoes. These are Charlotte, that I got really reduced in price about 6 weeks ago. And then I've also just got 2 random potatoes that were in the pantry, so I don't know what type these are, but we're going to grow those as well. I've always had plenty of success with supermarket potatoes, so I only really buy seed potatoes if they're on a special offer. Otherwise we just use the ones that are left over from the shopping. When I was little, my grandma gave me a few gardening tips, and one of them was that the comfrey tells you when it's time to plant your potatoes. So once the comfrey is in leaf, it's a good time to plant potatoes and the conditions will be warm enough for them. Now that's always worked out pretty well for me. So you also put these comfrey leaves in the hole with the potato, and that gives them a little food, a little boost while they're growing. So yeah, there's my top tip for growing potatoes. So all I'm going to do is, like I did with the other potatoes in the previous video, is I'm just going to dig a tiny hole. I'm going to grab 2 or 3 comfrey leaves, put them in the hole, and then I'm going to plant the potato in on top of that and then cover it up. And I'm going to plant these potatoes fairly close together at this end and spread them out a little bit more this end and see how it works out. So probably about 20 centimetres apart, that sort of spacing. So probably about there. Now this soil is really rich because we've put loads of manure on it ready for beans. So I'm sure the potatoes will be quite happy in that. And let's just see, so I've got 4 holes there. I'll just count how many potatoes I have. So I haven't bothered taking these out to chip. As you can see, they've just done it in the see-through bag. So I've got 5 potatoes there, so I think I'll give them a bit more room. I think I'll just do them in one row. Oh, another seedling. Right, so I think I'll just put these in one. Like a little comfrey bed. Got plenty of comfrey, so they might as well have extra. I've actually got 6. Didn't see that baby one. There's some worms in here. There. I'll probably do the same at this end. I had 2 at the other end, so I'll do 2 at this end so it's matching. Probably don't need quite this much comfrey, but since I've already picked it, it may as well go in. There we go. And then I'm just covering them up. And as these grow, as the leaves start to appear, I'll just put more mulch on top. So we can either use straw, compost, it doesn't have to be particularly fine compost, any kind of mulch really, even dried grass, even your grass chip clippings if you mow the lawn, would do the job. And that's it, we just wait for the potatoes.
The next job, and one that I always look forward to, is putting up the little wigwams that, you know, are made of canes or sticks to support the peas. In the past I've made these for sweet peas, beans, even squash, and anything that climbs really, and it just looks so pretty, it's so cottagey, and it really kind of, I don't know, just gives a bit more character to the plot and obviously a bit more structure. So I'm making these this year just with 3 canes, and I'm using some dogwood cuttings that I had from the garden. I have dried out the dogwood in the hope that it won't sprout, but chances are it will. I'm not too worried about that. Once that I've finished with these at the end of the season, I'll just pull out the dogwood, and if it has rooted, maybe I can grow it elsewhere. But if not, it's not the end of the world. If I was putting in something permanent, then obviously you don't really want dogwood growing everywhere. But for the purposes of this, it will be absolutely fine. Sweet corn is something that I've never really had much success with, if any success at all really. So last year I didn't grow it and I said I would never grow it again. But somehow we're sowing sweet corn seeds, so we're going to give these a try. We'll see how they get on. If the mice and the slugs don't eat them, maybe we'll have some to sow and I might end up putting them in. People on my allotment plot have had good success with sweet corn, so I don't really know why we don't. The people who've had the most success, to be fair, are people who've grown them in their polytunnels. And the year that we actually got some sweet corn, we did grow it in the polytunnel. But polytunnel space is very, well, it's at a premium because it's not the biggest polytunnel. So whether I'll give it space in there, I suppose it'll depend on how well my tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and things like that are doing. But yeah, we'll see how we get on. We're sowing them and then we'll just see where it goes. The final job of the day is chopping down this buddleia. Really should have done this last month, but we didn't get round to it. And we don't want it to be absolutely enormous. So we're just chopping it down to about waist level. And that'll make sure that the new growth with the flowers on is a bit lower down. It'll probably end up being a similar size to what it is now. And it will have flowers kind of dispersed all over it rather than just at the top. So yeah, it's probably a little bit late, but better late than never. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time.